Shalom, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Few Quality Moments Around the Shabbat Table with the Rabbi's Son. Good Sabbath to you all. I pray that wherever you are, the sweetness and the joy and the freedom of Sabbath is washing over you and your household and all that pertains to you and involves your life. This is a very challenging Shabbat because of the time of year in which we're in. This is the season of extremes. Kind of get that under your heart here for a few seconds. This is a season of extremes, and extremes start with temperature. It's the most noticeable thing. Is that in this northern hemisphere, it's hot. Yes, you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Weather patterns get extreme. We have hurricanes, tornadoes, we have all sorts of activities in the creation itself. And then in the southern hemisphere, it's the kind of the opposite process. We still have storms and brewing and things like that, but it's cold, and there's cold fronts, and there's great blizzards and things like that take place in the southern hemisphere. So this is a season of extremes in weather, in patterns, but it's also a season of extremes in human behavior. We're going to talk about red lines. Red lines are those places on a map or a chart or a gas gauge that tell you when you're getting into an area where there's extreme danger and you don't want to go any further. This is a place beyond which you don't want to go, red lines. And so we are entering a season of extremes, and that means for human beings, particularly for us in the covenant, for those who are called to be the great nation of the Creator of the universe. This is a season of red lines. We know where the red lines are. Learn how to respect and honor them and not boldly and presumptuously cross those red lines and try to do just what you want to do because you think it's right, you think it's moral, you think it's just, you think it will help you, will serve you, will make you happy. Don't cross red lines. This is the season in which we're learning how to deal with red lines, how to observe and notice where they are and how to handle them. So welcome to this Sabbath. As I say, it's a bit challenging because this is not the most pleasant, enjoyable reading. We're in the 37th Parsha of Torah. But let me remind you again why we're here. This is not just some Bible study we're doing. We are on a quest. I hope that's why you're here, because you really want to know the answers to life's most important questions. You're not satisfied with the answers provided to you by politics or ideology or sociology or the world's education systems or the world's entertainment or news systems. You're not satisfied with what they're telling you about what life is all about or why life is here. You want more information. You're not even satisfied with what the religions of the world are trying to teach you. You want to know it directly from the source. You want to go directly to the Creator Himself. So know the answers to questions like, what is the meaning and the purpose of life? Why are we here? How did this universe, how did we get here? And how did we and everything around us wind up in this mess? What is the purpose? And what is the end game? What's the best case scenario outcome of all this? Well, how can we make this better? What secrets, we get to the place now, what secrets does Torah, the Creator's 5-volume instruction manual for sons and daughters of the covenant, of sons and daughters of Adam, to flourish and to thrive and to excel and to bring out the best in each other and in the nations and in the ecosystem of the world? What is the secret that Torah has to teach us? Is this book of ancient wisdom more than just an outdated set of do's and don'ts, list of things that are archaic and parabolic, or is this really the fountain of wisdom for the answers to life's most important questions? Well, can we live a life of excellence in human skin? And does Torah tell us about how to do that? Can we leave the world, the ecosystem, the environment, a better place than we found it? And does Torah, rather than ideology, give us the answers to how that can happen? Can we lay a solid foundation of life and health and peace upon which our children and our children's children and our neighbors and even strangers that we encounter along the pathway can build to make this world the environment it was designed and created and could possibly, in its highest potential, be? These are the answers. These are the questions. Torah is not, for us, I hope you're realizing this now, Torah is not a religious book. It is also not, as some religions would tell you, some outdated and burdensome list of do's and don'ts and cans and can'ts. What is Torah then, if it is not those things? Torah is a portal of divine encounter. It is how we get in touch with our Creator. It is through these words that are put on papyrus or on scrolls of lambskin and carried on into printing presses and books. It's through these words, these divinely uttered and divinely scripted and choreographed words and stories, that we encounter and commune with the Creator of the universe. If you see Torah as something else than that, you will be skeptical, or you will be in some way offended by it. You'll just want a set of rules. You'll just want a savior to come and save you from all these things, unless you want to engage with the Creator and do things the way He designed them to be. So Torah is for us a portal of divine encounter and communion. Take a deep breath. Receive wisdom and understanding from the Holy One. He has given us a to-do book, not a set of a list of things to do and not to do, a way to handle life, a way to understand the red lines of life, and the safe places of life, and the safe harbors of life, and the purpose of life. So He's given us this portal of divine encounter and communion, these first 5 books of the Bible. And this is also to us not just that, it is a wellspring of essential revelation. It's what we need to know, when we need to know it, if we learn how to engage with it. This is the beauty of why we study Torah, why we meditate on the Torah, why we discuss the Torah so much, why we have a few quality moments each week around the Shabbat table with the rabbi's son, and why hopefully you have a group of people that you can converse with and meet with, either in person or online, to converse about the matters within the Torah portion of the week. But now, in the 37th week of our quest, we find ourselves in the final push of Torah's revelatory scheme. The final push of Torah's great revelatory scheme. This is the kick, where we have to have a kick, like on a race, on a mile, or a 2-mile run, or a 5K. You got to kick at the end. This is the final push of Torah's revelatory scheme. And it is the unit of Torah that I call the hard lessons we learned in the wilderness. We learned from the wilderness. This is our challenging season, our season of saying, okay, I know you know the basics, but can you get to be specialists? Can you become experts? Can you become special forces trained SEALs and Rangers and elite servants of the King? Well, the overriding theme of the whole book of Bamidbar, or Numbers as it's called in the Western world, is how to mature in and how to maximize the impact of our covenant calling. How to mature in our covenant calling, and how to maximize our covenant calling. What is that covenant calling? In general, it is to become the Holy One's great nation, His model people, to show the rest of the world how to live a more excellent life, to behave in more excellent ways, to have a more excellent impact upon the world. So to mature in and maximize our impact, that requires us to sometimes face and sometimes even stumble in the face of extreme seasons and extreme challenges, and this is where we are. And even yet, in the midst of all our facing and sometimes stumbling in the face of extreme challenges, we must not cross certain red lines. This is the secret, the message of Torah in the book of Numbers in general, and this week in Parsha Shelach Lecha, the 37th Parsha in this particular. You see, this is not training for amateurs. We know the Holy One by now. We don't try to take the story of the spies out of its context. We have a long history now of walking with the Holy One, being led forth in deliverance by the Holy One, learning his ways, finding this great snow globe model of his tabernacle that we're supposed to focus and keep in our eyes so that we can continue to realize he is with us and we are with him. He is ours and we are his. So this is not just amateur training, this is special forces training in the spiritual realm. You know, what the SEALs do and what the Rangers do and what the Green Beret do, the different armed forces for instance, the United States that we're talking about here, have these special forces, and they train in these powerful ways. Well, the spiritual realm has special forces as well, and you and I are invited to come into that realm. Now, as we get into this season of extremes, you should be aware, nobody said this was going to be easy. But would you want it to be? Would you expect it to be? Would you think that's considering the state that the world is in and humanity as a species is in and creation is in as a result of the state mankind is in, would you expect it? Would you think it could be easy? No. This is a mission that requires great diligence, and we must adhere to the disciplines of the kingdom to make this happen. If it were easy, it would not prepare us for the real life challenges that we will face in our next deployment in this grand scheme and grand plan. And it would not fix the world. If it were easy, it would just put us at risk individually and put us others and perhaps our mission at risk because we weren't prepared for what we're about to face. We didn't recognize the red lines. We didn't adhere to and follow the rules and the guidelines and the disciplines, and we weren't prepared to carry the mission forward even in the midst of great extremes. What does the Holy One know is coming? He knows what's coming. He knows what we're going to have to face. He knows the difficulty level that we're about to attack. And so he's going to prepare us for that as a good leader would do, as a good friend would do, as a good mentor would do, as a benevolent creator and covenant partner would do. He is going to prepare us because he knows things. Just in the generation that we're talking about and the people of Bnei Israel that are going to the promised land, he knows that they still have 5 pagan warlords, scary folks, mean folks, cruel folks with a bunch of, like cartels of today, 5 cartels, you think about it, that we have to go through to get to the promised land. And each one of those has a haughty attitude and vengeance and violence in their heart and breathing out of it. And they have a powerful army to support them of minions that do their bidding. And not only that, above and beyond, overarching the 5 pagan warlords, these 5 cartels, he knows that we're going to face a larger-than-life sorcerer. Yes, a sorcerer. I told you this is spiritual warfare. A sorcerer named Balaam, as he's called in the West. And this sorcerer is going to sum up all the dark powers of the occult to come and try to curse us, to try to stop it. He knows, the Holy One knows this. We don't know it yet. We're still living with our focus upon the snow globes of the tabernacle and Aaron in the holy place lighting the lamps and sitting around our Seder table at Passover and all the things we talked about last week, the priest blowing the silver trumpets to call us all together. We have these snow globe images, and he says, you'll need those snow globe images, but you're going to need to recognize that they have red lines. Everything has a red line. So we're going to face the 5 pagan warlords. We don't even know who they are yet. We're going to face a larger-than-life sorcerer named Balaam, and we have no clue that he even exists. All this has to be faced and overcome in the season of extremes before we can cross the threshold, even into our kingdom beachhead from which we'll launch the campaign of the kingdom into the world. The Holy One knows that we're going to have to displace certain things that are still within us, carryovers from the Egyptian bondage season. Things that are the 5 holes in our soul and the result of the stirring up, the agitation of those by the Egyptians and by others. He knows that we're going to have to face and displace the fear of the dragon and the fear of his demons. He knows we're going to have to face and overcome the arrogance and the pride that comes from false bravado. We are who are we are. We are the this, we are the that. We are the chosen people. We need to get over the false bravado of that and realize we are the servants of the King, and that's the only thing that matters. So we have to displace the fear of the dragon and of his demons with the fear of the Holy One. And the realization, the deep realization of the depth of our calling. And that our feelings and our opinions are subject and subordinated at all times to the grand will and ways and ideas and directions of the Creator. So we know, he knows we have to displace the fear of the dragon that is in us and the fear of the demons that is in us. And he replaced that with love for him, with love for the Holy One, the Creator of the universe, the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, the God who brought us forth out of Egypt to be his people and brought us to Sinai to engage and betroth us as his beloved bride people, and who has called us and taught us and given us this Torah as his portal of communication and communion and encounter with him. We're going to have to displace the fear of the dragon that's still in us and the fear of his demons that holds on, hangs on, with love for him and with passion for his grand plan to handle not just the imminent giants in the land, the ones that look like they're there, and it's the ones that stand behind those giants. There are giants in the land and other obstacles and other issues, and they become red lions. So we're going to learn to displace the fear of the dragon and his demons with love for the Holy One and passion for his grand plan to handle not just the imminent giants in the land problem, but every other challenge of life in this age, the Olam Hazeh. So, the Holy One knows the daunting challenges that we are destined to face sooner rather than later in the course of our walking out our great nation mission. The season of extremes is our time to meet some of these dangers and face some of these red lines. He has allured us and drawn us out into the wilderness for just such a time as this, and just such a purpose as this. He's not just carrying us to the promised land. Along the way, he's allowing us to be tempted and tested, and most importantly, humbled, in order that we will not rush in there arrogantly or rush in there out of some sense of national pride. We will walk in according to his instructions. Pi Adonai, by the mouth of the Creator. So he's allowed us to be tempted in the wilderness. He's allowed us to be tested in the wilderness. He's allowed us to be humbled in the wilderness. And he's allowed us in that process to get poked and probed and irritated in the very sore areas of the 5 holes in our soul we've talked about. If you want to know what those 5 holes are, you can go back to our time around the Shabbat table regarding Parsha Vayikra, Parsha number 24 of the cycle. We talked in detail about the 5 holes in every human being's soul and the Holy One's means of addressing those and putting a kippur of healing balm that not just covers and hides those 5 holes, but begins to bring about a healing within them, like salve on a poultice. That's the kind of kippurim, the covering that he has. So we've learned a little bit about those 5 holes, and he's allowed us to be tested, to be tempted, to be poked and probed and irritated in the area of those 5 holes, each one in its time. Because he knows that this is special forces training in the Spirit. And he knows that what does not kill us will make us stronger for the next level of the fight. He knows what spiritual warfare really is. I know there's a lot of doctrines and teachings, and it all sounds so good till you actually try to do it. What spiritual warfare actually is psycho-spiritual targeting. The Holy One knows that the role of the adversary is to probe and to push and to poke and to irritate and agitate the critical alignment of neshama, nefesh, and basar. Our neshama, our God-breathed spirit, is supposed to be managing and in control of our soul, our mind, our will, and emotion, and of our flesh. And that's the order. The neshama dictates to the nefesh, and dictates to the basar, and they feel like a freight train rolling downhill. And this is how we accomplish the most in our life. But the psycho-spiritual targeting of spiritual warfare is when the adversary, the authorized adversary, comes and stirs and triggers those 5 holes in the soul and causes the alignment of the neshama and nefesh and basar that we're designed to have to be off kilter. Causes the flesh to rise up and take charge, or causes the nefesh, the will, the mind, emotions, the opinions, the attitudes, the ideology, the political beliefs, the political positioning to somehow take that position. Those are not supposed to be running the show. The neshama is supposed to be in charge. It's still quiet, still small, still voice. How does spiritual warfare really work? Well, there are basically four levels at which spiritual warfare occurs, this triggering of the 5 holes in our soul. The first one is just called a trigger. It's a situation, a circumstance, a topic, a word or phrase, a song, a melody, a scent, a person that you see, a face that you see, that evokes an unplanned and emotional response based in your subconscious or based in your past. And you don't know why, but something causes your emotions. This is the stirring up of the basar, of the flesh, and of the nefesh. The emotions are part of the flesh, of the nefesh. And the idea is you're triggered. You don't really understand why, because it's a subconscious underlying thing. And this is the first level of spiritual warfare. What triggers you? If you know what triggers you, if you know what your subconscious holes in your soul that are still active are, then you can be able to overcome spiritual warfare. What's the second level of spiritual warfare? Once you get past trigger, you get to pressure point. This is a vulnerable area of the flesh, of the basar, of the body, of your thumbs, your solar plexus, your throat, the very vulnerable areas, your joints. Very vulnerable areas of your flesh or in your nefesh, areas where you're tempted to go off on rants and opinions and rhetoric, and you're being moved by oratory and by propaganda. These are those vulnerable areas of the flesh or of the nefesh, of the soul, that produce an intense response of emotion or pain or fear when they are touched. Pressure points. Those triggers are the first level of spiritual warfare. Pressure points. What are your pressure points? What is it that causes you to have a negative reaction immediately, not just that actually causes action or flight or fight methodology? And then the third level of spiritual warfare, the higher level of spiritual warfare, so far as tipping point. This occurs at the point where the weight of a series of small things builds up, that reaches a tipping point. That other trigger, that other pressure point manipulation causes these small series of small challenges, causes the status quo of shalom to change. You really lose it, so to speak. And it becomes significant enough to catalyze, to bring forth a larger and lasting change. This is a tipping point. Trigger, pressure point, tipping point. The adversary knows just how far to push you. He knows what your red lines are, and they're go lines to him, and so are to it. And so then the fourth is the highest level of spiritual warfare. The most dangerous level of spiritual warfare is the breaking point. This is the red line, the ultimate red line. This is the level of stress and discomfort, of disorientation, of exhaustion, of sensory stimulation, overstimulation, temptation, pain, at which a person's mission orientation fails. His God consciousness fades. His understanding of family and communal and national cohesion and goals, common goals, yields to self-interest, to pain avoidance, to ethno-cultural special interests, tribalisms, to ideological arguments, to political parties and positions, to philosophical and religious organizational mumbo-jumbo and doctrine and theology, etc. This is the breaking point where you are actually broken away from the portal of connection, the actual free flow of revelation from heaven, the place of encounter with the Holy One. This is the breaking point. This is the red line. Well, we're about to have the season of extremes, and the season of extremes in the desert at Kadesh Barnea will come to a head. This will be our red line area. And what's going to happen is that we're going to have a series of triggers and pressure points and tipping points and breaking points in the community, and a generation is going to reach and cross a red line, and that generation will not go any further in the plan. They will not be burned alive. They will not be cast out. They will not be starved out. They will not be, the manna flow will not cut off. The water flow will not cut off. But they will not go into the land because they have crossed the generational red line. And that we'll find out a little bit of what that line is. But the question that's posed that we have to ask as we stand poised on the brink of Kadesh Barnea, of this place where the season of extremes is going to hit us hardest, is will we stay on course and on mission in the face of our challenges, or will we immediately be intimidated and be frightened off? Second question, will we listen to and follow the Holy One's instructions? Will we stay attached to the umbilical cord of the encounters of the portal, or will we insist on doing it our way, the way that feels right, the way that feels safe? Third question, will we embrace the Holy One's disciplines, his daily chores, his daily responsibilities, his breathing mechanisms, his breathing plan of breathing him in as we breathe out the world, and psalmistry, Tehillim, Tefillim, all the different things we're called to do. Will we embrace his disciplines, or will we just go through the motions if we do it at all? Will we work together as a team with our fellows, with our family members? Or will we demand to be the star, the center of attention, the prima donna, the one who runs everything and who gets all the attention? Final question, will we have each other's back? Or will we abandon them and turn on our friends and our kinsmen? And will we sabotage the mission? And will we betray our friends and neighbors and the Holy One himself? Will we endure hardship and suffering as a good soldier? Or will we quit when the going gets tough? Will we bring honor to our king and corps, esprit de corps, or will we allow and cause disgrace to happen to our company, our nation on it, our watch? Will we be ready and willing and at our best when they need us most? Or will we be distracted, go AWOL, or collapse under the stress? And when others around us are failing and bailing out, will we stay at our post, on alert, on task? Or will we get discouraged and disillusioned, blame everybody else for what's going on, and give up ourselves as well? Welcome to Parsha number 37, Shelach, Lecha. Send out for yourselves. The subheading I would give to this Parsha is speech and tone tattletale on vision, or the lack thereof. Let me repeat that. It went kind of fast by you, I know. And we're just sitting around the Shabbat table, so we got a few minutes to talk. Your speech and your tone will tattletale, will tell the story about what your vision is, will tattletale on your vision or the lack thereof. You see, out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So, what you see and is what is in your heart, what you perceive, what you allow yourself to focus on, becomes what you allow yourself to talk about. And you have the choice as to what you will see and what you will focus on and what you will believe is important. So my question to you as we begin this discussion around the Shabbat table today for Parsha 37 Shelach Lecha is Ma ata roeh? Same question the Holy One asked Jeremiah, his young prophet, as he was calling him into service. Ma Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu, what do you see? Ma ata roeh? What do you see? Because you see what you see as you look at the land. What you see as you look at the landscape before you. What you see as you look at the environment and the creation ecosystem. What you see as you look at the nations around you and the peoples and what they're doing and what's happening. What you see will come out in what you say. And how you interpret what you see will it be what you express more than the facts of what you see. You'll have your opinions about what you see. Ma'ata ro'eh, what do you see? Do you see redemption about to break forth? Or do you see destruction about to devastate? Do you see all the things that are wrong? Or do you see the potential to make things right? So ma'ata ro'eh, what do you see? And ma'ata omar, what will you say? What will be the words that come out of your mouth? With that said, let us do our call to worship. Let us take that deep breath, receive that deep breath from the Holy One, and breathe out a blessing to him, the blessing before reading from the Torah. I'll sing it in Hebrew. If you know it, sing along. Baruch Adonai Hamvorak, Baruch Adonai Hamvorak Leolam Vaed, Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Bakar Banu Mikol Ha'amin, V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen. So be it. And now may you open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah, because we are just strangers in this earth, so do not hide your instructions from us. At the end of Parsha Lecha, which we studied last week, we had the issues of what happened with Miriam. We were told to remember what happened to Miriam. What happens when you let your mouth say things that you've seen, that you have criticized and been judgmental about. When you let your mouth become an employee of the adversary doing the tempting and the testing. Well, Miriam and Aaron had let that happen, and they had spoken Lashon Hara concerning their brother Moshe. And we know what happened as a result. And the last words of the parsha were, and afterwards, after Miriam was restored, and after Miriam was disciplined for this, and after Miriam got a chance to get herself right after this situation, V'akar nasu ha'am mehaserot. And afterward, the people lifted up the camp, pulled up the tent pegs, and left Haserot. Vayachanu b'midbar Paran, and they pitched camp in the wilderness, the whispering desert wasteland of Paran. Now the opening words of Shelach Lecha, our parsha of the season of extremes and of the red lines being laid forth. It starts like this: Vayadaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. And then the Holy One spoke to Moshe, saying, Shelach lecha anashim, send forth for yourselves men. Vayaturu et Eretz Canaan, and let them tour, surveil, spy out the land of Canaan. Asher ani noten livnei Israel, which I am entrusting in stewardship to Bnei Israel, the sons of the covenant of Israel. Ish echad lemate avotav tishlachu, and you are to send one man of integrity from every paternal tribe. Kol nasi bahem, every one a prince among them. Vayishlach otam Moshe, and thus Moshe sent them. Mimidbar Paran alpin Adonai, from the wilderness of Paran, the desert wasteland of Paran, by the mouth, by the lips, by the direction of the Holy One. Al pi Adonai. Kulam anashim rashe b'nei Israel hema. All of them were men who were heads of the tribes of the children of Israel. Ve'ele shmotam. These were their names. Reuven. From the tribe of Reuven was Shammua, the son of Zakur. From the tribe of Shimon was Shaphat, the son of Hori. From the tribe of Yehuda, Judah was Caleb, the son of Yefunah. From the tribe of Issachar was Igal, the son of Yosef. From Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim was the man Hoshea. son of Nun. From the tribe of Benjamin was Palti, the son of Raphu. From the tribe of Zebulun was Gadi, the son of Suzi. From the tribe of Dan was Amiel, the son of Gamali, and on. Asher and Naphtali and Gad had their representatives. And we will not go through each one of them. The two that we'll remember most will be Caleb of the tribe of Yehuda and Hoshea, who will be renamed Yehoshua from the tribe of Ephraim. We're going to have a 10 and a 2 situation. 10 of the spies are going to take one position to another. It almost sounds like a recurrence of the Joseph story. 10 brothers took one position, the sons of Leah and the sons of the concubines, and 2, the sons of Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin. So it goes on. The story goes on. Vaturu et Aretz Canaan, and they surveilled the land of Canaan. They were told to surveil the land of Canaan at least. Uritim et haaretz mahi, and see and discern what kind of land it really is. Ve'et ha'am ha'yishev aleha, and whether the people that are occupying it, squatting there temporarily, kazakh hu ha'rafeh ha'me'et me'ata hu'im rav, are they strong? Or are they weak? Or are they few? Or are they many? Umma haaretz asher hu yishev hatova hu imaru ra'a. And whether the land itself on which these people are squatting and occupying yields tov things, good things, or whether it yields ra, evil things. Umma ha'arim asher hu yoshev behema ha'bechmachamanim im bitz Bimitz Zarim, and whether the cities and villages they dwell in are like open encampments, nomad tents, or whether they're strongholds like forts. Well, welcome to the Kadesh Barnea narrative, and welcome to Chet HaMeraglim, the sin of the spies. And we have already faced some daunting traumas, challenges in the wilderness, the second wilderness. From Taberah to Kivrot Ta'ava to Hatzerot, we face these challenges. They've been internal challenges. We haven't faced external challenges yet. We faced environmental trauma. We faced heat. We faced wind, dust storms. We faced sand fleas and all that sort of stuff. But while we took a few hits in those areas and we wobbled significantly a few times, at least we're all still, as a community and as individuals, in mission forward mode. We're heading towards our promised land with a few limps and scars along the way. We have faced the sensual and sentimental and sentient beast within us. But here we are, still moving forward with the cloud of the presence. And now it is time for the ultimate challenge of the flock, the valley of the shadow of death, and the table in the presence of our enemies. The hardest lessons yet of the second wilderness obstacle course will be that there are hard red lines in this world, and we must not cross those red lines, even especially in presumption and arrogance, but even in a desire to do good. We must not cross the red lines of the kingdom. You see, what's going to happen is a whole generation is going to cross red lines this week and is going to ring the bell. I'm using this theory, this idea of ringing the bell out of the Navy SEAL training stories from Buds on Coronat Island, where the SEALs are trained. In the middle of the camp, there's a brass bell hanging from a stand, and it's in the middle of the compound for all to see. And when a candidate gives up, when he quits, when he just can't make it, he goes and he rings the bell 3 times to let everybody know that another one has quit, someone else has left. Well, the whole generation of Bnei Israel, a whole generation is going to ring the bell, saying, I want out, I quit, I'm done with this whole mission plan, and opt out of the grand plan of the Creator for Tikkun Olam, fixing the world. Well, Kadesh, where's this going to happen? It's going to happen at Kadesh Barnea. At Kadesh Barnea, what does that name mean? What does that place mean? First of all, where is it? Kadesh Barnea is the western edge of the Promised Land. Right near it is Ber Lahoroi, which is where, of course, Abraham had been one of his places where he pastured his sheep and goats and cattle, camels. It was also where Yitzhak and Rivka had begun their married life and born and had the twins of Esau and Yaakov. It is a very precious place, very close to Kadesh Barnea. Kadesh Barnea is just to the west of that area. Kadesh Barnea is also the point where the terrain of the Middle East changes. It begins to change from barren wasteland, badlands as it were, shifting sands where calm seas or dust storms kick up and blow everything around, and where it's nearly not inhabitable, it's not arable, there's no pasturage, there's not much growth, and life cannot be sustained. That's the area to the west of Kadesh Barnea and to the southwest of Kadesh Barnea, back in the area of the Sinai Peninsula. But this is the area where the terrain begins to change. At Kadesh Barnea, pasture lands begin to unfold, and rolling hills where there can be vineyards and orchards and villages of populated areas. This begins to happen. Well, this is the breaking point. It's almost like a mini continental divide, except for the waters don't change their course in this location. Kadesh Barnea is the place where the extremes will be encountered, where the red lines will be crossed. What does Kadesh Barnea mean, the name? It's kind of an interesting thing. You can't say categorically this is the only thing Kadesh Barnea, the name, means. But when it comes right down to it, it is a holy purging, at least one implication. A holy, Kadesh, a holy purging or purification by shaking, by trembling, by causing great upheaval. Well, that's what we're seeing going to take place. We learned at Sinai so much. Our minds are exploding with revelation, but has it changed us? Has it fixed the holes in our soul? Are we ready for prime time? Are we ready for special forces activity rather than just training? We're going to find out soon that all the revelation in the world is not enough. Even the Sinai briefing, the Kedusha discourse, the Korbanot discourse, the great other conversations and discussions and teachings we've had at Sinai, they're not going to be enough. Torah by itself is not enough. It's the encounter, and it's the connection, it's the consciousness of the presence of the Holy One that makes Torah come alive, makes the instruction and the revelation come into bearing where we can apply it. So the revelation by itself is not enough. What we did not learn and cannot learn and could not learn at Sinai or at any little group of places where we learn Torah is that we all, if we're going to walk in our great nation calling, have to confront and learn to deal head on with seasons of extreme and red lines. And that is why the Holy One led us away from Sinai and cast us headlong into the wilderness proving ground in general, and to Kadesh Barnea, where we will encounter human beings again, other nations again, warriors, giants again, in order to test us, train us, and prove us. You see, our season of isolation, of being just us with the Holy One, has been wonderful, but it's over. It's time to re-engage with mankind. It's time to re-engage with society. It's time to re-engage with economy. It's time to re-engage with reality as the world thinks of it, at least. Our season of isolation was wonderful, but it is over. We've got to carry what we learned and who we learned it from into the real world. 6 weeks or so after leaving Sinai, that's when it all happened. Around the time of the new moon of the 4th month, which is called Tammuz. It's not very far away. Around the time of the new moon of the 4th month, because this is the 23rd day of Sivan, the 3rd month. Around the new moon that's coming up, the Holy One brought us, our ancestors, that is, to Kadesh Barnea, to this divide, this continental divide, as it were, where we're going to start seeing people and arable land again. He brought us there to introduce us to the nations that rage. The psalmist says, "Why do the nations rage and the peoples imagine a vain thing?" Well, we're about to find out. We're about to face that. We're about to learn what the psalmist knew, that nations will always rage. Ethnicities will always scream and cry and be belligerent. Nations rage. And they rage under the unmitigated influence of Ra, King James Version calls it English, or evil. Shakat, the King James Version calls it corruption. And Hamas, yes, that's the same name that a group in the Middle East is using right now. Hamas means, King James Version calls it violence, but it also just means cruel behavior, cruel approach to life. So the nations rage. We have to face it. We have to deal with it. We can't make it quit and go away. The nations will rage, always rage. And brutal, barbarous peoples are going to commune with and serve the unclean spirits of the occult realm. That's going to happen. We're going to have to face it. We're going to have to deal with it. They're going to obsess over vain things, things that are temporal, things that are fleshly. They're going to spew profanity out of their mouth and threats and violence and obscenities. They're going to delight in doing evil. They're going to honor cruelty and violence. They're going to normalize sexual perversion. This is what the nations do. We've been isolated on Mount Sinai with the Holy One teaching us snow globe visions of how to build His kingdom upon the earth. But that's not what's we're going to find when we get to Canaan. We're going to find people delighting in evil, honoring cruelty, normalizing sexual perversions, spewing unclean spirits, serving unclean spirits, and committing unspeakable atrocities, human sacrifice, and other things on a daily basis. Oh, we've got to be on our toes here because we're not in Kansas anymore. This is the western gateway to the promised land we've now reached, but it is not open for the taking. It's controlled by the fierce Emori tribes. They've come along since Abraham was there. They've come along since Yaakov was there. They've come along since we left and went to Egypt. They've come down swooping in hordes from Syria, and before that from Mesopotamia. And they come with like cartels taking over the land. They occupy, and they know we're coming, and they know why. And they have no intention of either inviting or letting us in. And they're not alone. Just to the south of the Edomites, and they're entrenched there. And just to the little ways to the west, the Ishmaeli, just right back where we came from, a little bit north of there, the Ishmaeli, the Ishmaelites are ready and willing and able to defend their territory and surrounding territories with the sword. Nobody wants us there. Everybody knows why we're there. Everybody knows who we are, and they do not want us in their territory. Now, we haven't had to deal with anybody from a foreign nation since Yittro's visit, which was about back in Exodus 19. We've gone through the entire second half of the book of Exodus. We've gone through all the book of Leviticus. We've gone through the first 12 chapters of the book of Numbers. We haven't dealt with a single person from outside the camp. But it's about to break. It's about to happen. We're about to have our trigger points pushed, our pressure points pushed, our turning points pushed. These are about to happen. Our last interaction was so far long ago, but since then, something has happened to us. We have heard the Holy One's voice. We heard it for ourselves at Sinai. We have learned, we have been given this portal of encounter called the Torah. We've received training in how to commune with the Creator and how to do His will upon the earth. We've built His tabernacle so we have a moving, flowing portal of this divinity of heaven coming to earth and Kedusha downflow in our camp. That's what's happened since then. Are we ready then to face the world? Well, the Holy One has decided this is the place He's going to reintroduce us to the dark side of fallen humanity. At a wild west lawless outpost called Kadesh Barnea. The reason we're here is because this is where the sustainability of life really begins. It's the first populated city we've come to in the course of our long journey across the Sinai Peninsula. Shifting sands, where no rain falls, is going to change. We're going to find pastures, orchards, vineyards, villages, people. All right, so be it. No more hanging around the desert green room for us. Our audience, albeit a hostile one, awaits. Smile, everyone. It's showtime. This week's Crucible is Kadesh Barnea. So close to our promised land. But yet, are we ready for this? Emmanuel awareness, God consciousness? Check. Covenant commitment and engagement with the plan? Check. Vision for may your kingdom come, may your will be done on earth, O Holy One? Check. Passion for the mission, for the land, and for the grand plan? Check. Guards in place over our eyes, our ears, our minds, our hearts, our lips? We'll find out if there's a check on that as well. This week's basic narrative is that from what should have been the last camping place in the wilderness journey, Moshe sent out a team of 12 spies, one from each tribe, to scout out the land. And these spies toured the land for 40 days, seeing its goodness. And they lived, and they were healthy, and no one was harmed. And they saw wonderful things. But when the spy delegation returned to camp, a 10-member majority, remember we've talked about the 10 and the 2 and following the pattern of Joseph and his brothers. The 10-member majority of the spies gave a fear-filled and demoralizing report. What they saw, they chose to focus on was giants. There were a total of how many? 3. Those were found, the sons of Anak were found near Hebron. That's the only giants mentioned in the entire narrative of their journey. But they come back and they say they were all giants. It's a land inhabited by fearsome giants. And if you want to count 3 in the entire country, population inhabiting by them, I guess you see, what you focus on. What you see is what you say. So they talked about giants, even though there were only 3 in the great scope of the whole land. And they called it a land that consumes its inhabitants. What are they talking about? Why would they say that? Yehoshua and Caleb responded, no. They had a minority report. They called the giants, they're like bread for us. I mean, if you face someone who's bigger than you in a sports contest, in football or baseball or basketball, you develop a plan to work around them and to use their size and their advantage against them. But that's not what they said. They said, look, we can do this. Yehoshua and Caleb said, they're just bread for us. But what happens is the fear engendered by the majority report about the giants that inhabit the land. And the land that consumes its inhabitants had gripped the people, and they attacked Yehoshua and Caleb with stones. Well, in a panic that caused by these rhetoric, by this oratory, by this propaganda, by these opinions that are being stated by the 10 who have this lack of vision, the people actually asked to die in the desert. They screamed, they cried, they wept all night. Rather than go into the land and face the fearsome giants that the majority report had described to them, they cried out, let us select a captain and go back to Egypt, or just let us die here in the desert. They crossed. Don't make us go into that land. Oh, they crossed a red line. One of the red lines is do not slander, do not demean the land of promise. It is a key factor of the grand plan. Do not say bad things or think bad things or reject Israel and its connection with the covenant and its connection with the people of the Holy One. That's a red line to the Holy One, and it's a generational red line. If you cross that red line as a group, as a people, then you will get your wish granted. You will get to die in the desert. The Holy One intervened to stop the stoning of Yehoshua and Caleb. He granted exactly what the people asked for, saying, okay, you will spend the next 40 years dying off in the desert just as you requested. But your promise, your offspring, your children, and the next generation who has not crossed this red line with you, this next generation will go into the land in your stead. And the next morning, after all this happened, in the light of day, the people realized, what do we say? What do we do under the influence of this propaganda? under the influence of this oratory, under the influence of this rhetoric, under the influence of these opinions being spoken by these influential people. What did we do? So they come back and they say, we made a terrible mistake. They came to Moshe saying, we'll go into the land after all. But Moshe says, no, it's too late. You crossed the red line. And the Holy One has made his decree, and it's final and it's sealed. And that is that you're going to turn back and go back into the wilderness from which you came and let this next generation rise up in the wilderness. But they wouldn't hear it. They wouldn't listen. They refused, and they chose to go out to war against the Amorites, anyway. And since it was not the will of the Holy One, and the Holy One was not with them in this, they got beaten soundly and driven back into the wilderness from which they had come. That's the story of the spies. That's the story of Shelach Lecha. Why did this all happen? Why? What is the problem? Well, the sages have tended to call it the season of Sinat Hinam, the season of baseless hatred, as they call it. Technically, Sinat Hinam doesn't mean baseless hatred. Actually, I'm not sure there is such a thing as baseless hatred. At least in our own minds, we feel like we have a reason to hate anybody we hate. Not that we should hate anybody, but if we did, we feel like we have a good reason. We wouldn't do it unless we had a good reason, at least as our mind, our emotions, our flesh feels it or sees it. So I don't think there is such a thing as baseless hatred. So I think it's sort of a misnomer. What Sinat Hinam really means is a refusal, a rejection of grace for other people, a rejection of favor for other people, a rejection of purpose and meaning of life and the value of life for other people. We think we have value of life. We think they're not. They don't have value of life. You see it today in ethnic movements. They think their ethnicity is the only one that has value. And the other people are all not good. You need to be destroyed. You see it in the Middle East, in the Hamas and its approach to life. Israel, Jews must be destroyed, killed. There's no place for them. There's no grace for them. Sinat Hinam, and that is what we face in the world. And unfortunately, sometimes it poisons us as well. We feel like other people need to be destroyed as well. That is not the way of the kingdom. That's not going to bring tikkun olam to the world. So we're talking about arrogant rejection and of the love and grace protocols of Leviticus 19, of the love chapter of Torah, and of 1 Corinthians 13. If you understand what love for your fellow man is and how it's described in the Torah, the protocols of the Torah, when you reject that for other people, then you have crossed a red line, a generational red line. Now, the problem that we have at Kadesh Barnea is that we've been disconnected from the source of love. We've been disconnected from the source of grace. We've been disconnected from the source of wisdom and revelation. We have allowed the trigger points and the pressure points and the turning points. We've allowed the spiritual warfare to separate our minds and our vision from the Holy One and His ways and His plan, to reaction of our flesh and reaction of our pseudo-intellect, formation of opinions and formation of attitudes and formation of moods and preparation of angry responses and vengeance and vigilante justice. And no one respects or honors anyone else. And narcissism reigns. And arrogance and judgmentalism and self-righteous outrage are celebrated. And fear-mongering spreads horror stories. And divisive people with agendas of their own sow division amongst us. And mockers mock, and red lines are crossed. Well, there are several red lines. One of them I've just mentioned. When you separate yourself from the source of love and the source of grace and the source of wisdom and revelation, when you separate yourself and allow the screaming, the crying, the shouting of the world and its opinions and its rhetoric and its oratory and its propaganda and it's all this stuff to come into and separate you, turn your eyes off the Holy One. That's the first red line. The second red line is when you speak negative thoughts, when you speak curses or diminishing language about the land of Canaan. This is the strategic beachhead of the kingdom of heaven. This is the stage upon which all of the grand redemptive plan, the passion play of the kingdom is to act out. This is to be the base of operations of the Holy One and his kingdom on earth. And therefore, to speak against it is saying, I don't want anything to do with the plan of the Creator. I want to do it my way. It's the ultimate declaration of independence from the Holy One. So speaking negatively of the land, be careful. That's a red line. There are others. We're going to find about a man who goes forth and begins to just reject the Sabbath. He decides that the Sabbath of the Holy One is useless. It's just another day. It might as well go out and gather sticks, gather wood, make gathering, do whatever. Just treat it like any other day. And so he goes out and he's found, and this is a shock to the people because they've all been celebrating, observing the beauty and the majesty of the Sabbath and drawing the energy of the Kedusha portal that Sabbath provides. And here's this man in their own midst doing it. So this is another red line that's drawn in this parsha. And the third red line is refusing to receive Kippur. Covering that heals from the Holy One. We see that. We talk about there are sins or breaches of covenant that are done. The Holy One begins to talk to the next generation, the ones who's going to go into the land, about learning how to carry the Kippurim, how to prepare and share the Kippurim, the covering that heals, with other peoples. And then he begins to tell us about the tzitzit, the fringes on the corners of our garments. That we're supposed to wear something that sets us apart, not just make us look special or different, but that reminds us of something. The message of the tzitzit is to us, not to others. The message of the tzitzit is, do you remember what happened at Kadesh Barnea? Do you remember what happens whenever you lose connection with the Holy One? His portal of wisdom and revelation, his portal of love and kindness. Do you know what happens? Do you remember what happens? Do you know what happens if you let your eyes see things and focus on things that are not the most important things, not the things of the plan? You know what happens when you let your mouth speak and let your heart feel certain things, and you let the red lines be crossed with your eyes, with your mouth, with your heart? Do you know that? Remember that. Wear the tzitzit so that you will always remember. Beloved, it's time for me to leave you. Our time around the Shabbat table is about over. So I bless you in your goings forth and your conversations. May you have a great time discussing these sections of the Torah with your friends and with your family members. And may you be ready for the season of extremes. And may you not cross the red lines. Shabbat Shalom.